Yamamalia, Kira Jene Gomorinea. My name's Jen. I'm Gomoroy. Hello, friends. And thank you, Lee and Wendy. Huge to have to actually follow all of this. As we said, Guy is unable to be here, but he's going to appear throughout the presentation. I think we've got our timing out a little bit because I think Guy was recording late into the night last night and I think he lost sense of time, so I might be smushing things up a little bit and Guy might be extending them out. So we're talking about doing research differently.
Yeah, I'm Guy. So sorry I can't be there with you today, but I have no doubt that Jen's going to give just such an amazing overview of our work. We're trying to do things differently. Really hoping our presentation might act as a bit of a case study or a model of engaging with your local community, particularly those from communities who are typically absent from research studies in neuroimaging.
So I'd like to start with an acknowledgement, and I'd actually like to do a little bit differently. I'd like people to have both feet on the ground, if you wouldn't mind. Everything out of your hands. And if you feel comfortable enough, please close your eyes and take a few really good, deep breaths. Connect your feet to the floor. The floor, of course, is connected to the foundations, and underneath the foundations is Mother Earth. We're meeting. As you draw in breath, realise that we are sharing breath. Country is speaking. You're absorbing country. We breathe in, we breathe out, and we have a relationship with country. We are present. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which we gathered, of Meanjin, the Tuggerah and Yurrabal people, and we recognise that this place is a place of age-old ceremony, gathering, of learning and of wisdom, and that over this week we too are adding to that wisdom. We are sharing in that wisdom, we are growing that wisdom, and that is ancient wisdom that we're participating in. Guy and I would like to acknowledge that our research is done on the countries of Biripi, Awabikal, Gomoroy, Worimi, Greagal, Darkinjun, and I think that's it, Worimi. Couldn't forget Worimi. And that we respectfully acknowledge all elders. So those elders who have lived before, those elders who are living now, like Auntie who presented last night, and those elders who are yet to come in the future. And that we recognise that we are on country of which we have unceded sovereignty, of the land, the air, the water. All of this always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And we acknowledge our sisters, our Maori sisters from across the waters, and we're very grateful for sharing that, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that have joined us today. So, who's Jen? So I'm Gomoroy Mob. My grandfather was 2 years old when he was removed from country. He was taken from Moree, and he was given to a couple who needed some labourers. He was one of about a dozen boys. His brother was there too as well. He was 4 years old. And they spent their childhood as labourers, as farm labourers. I was therefore born and raised on Gundurra, Ngunnawal and Yuin countries, which is around Canberra, the ACT. And I'm currently living on Wanneroo country, which is absolutely beautiful in the Hunter Valley. So I started out in the field of early childhood, additional and diverse needs. And I entered university as a very mature age student. I have a degree in theology, in Aboriginal studies, and a PhD in Aboriginal studies. And my daughter was good enough to join me in a language course that we did together. And it's been so wonderful listening to Lee and Wendy using language. It's just beautiful. I was actually asked by some specialist that I saw one day, and he said, well, I don't know, an imaging fellow, he said, it's not exactly something that you go to a careers advisor and sort of say, well, I'd like to be an imaging fellow. And I said, no, I sort of fell into it, pretty much the way I fell into university. And it's a bit of a family joke that I actually ended up at university by accident. And if my daughter was here, she'd chip in by telling you that it was a shame she had to have the accident, but that's what happened. So as Guy will tell you, we're across a lot of things. I've been a board member of an early childhood organisation called First Chance, and my outstanding services award was from them for 7 years being on their board, and I said that was actually worth 2 PhDs because we have 47% of our children receiving services from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families. I'm a spiritual director, a member of the Aboriginal Catholic Ministry in the diocese. I'm an agribusiness partner, the other half of which is over there sitting. I am a mother of 3 and a grandma to 1. I'm mother-in-law to 2 awesome sons and a member of the Aboriginal Research Health Panel. I'm also a writer and a sharer of stories. Wrong way.
So my name is Guy Cameron. I'm a proud Walelan fella. My family are from Canamble in inland New South Wales. I was actually born up in the Northern Territory, so in the top end of Australia. But I did most of my schooling and grew up in Kempsey, which is on the east coast, and that's where it kind of feels like home for me. I've got fond memories of growing up, out spending a lot of time out bush, spending time with cousins, camping, and just having a great time. And the reason I'm kind of introducing myself in this way is particularly when you're working with Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people, you'll find that, we take our time with things. We like to, introduce ourselves to one another and kind of share a bit of our story with each other to kind of build that relationship, build that trust, particularly important in, when you're trying to do research with our people, because unfortunately, as many of us would know, that things haven't been done right in the past, and that's really something that we want to change. So I actually entered university as a mature age student. I came through schooling, didn't expect myself to kind of go on to seek further education. But I guess I had some amazing people in my life, and someone said to me, just give it a crack. I reckon you could do this. So I thought, yeah, why not? So I went along. I found a real passion for science and kind of just understanding how our body worked and just, amazed that it doesn't go wrong more often. So that led me into a degree in biomedical sciences and, further curiosities in immunology and microbiology. And I'm currently in my final year of medicine. And I guess how I got engaged in this space is working particularly with Aboriginal ear health. And I guess there were lots of conversations with the team about a sideways project, which are, trying to understand how to capture, images of the brain when people have had a cochlear implant. And we got in conversations and, I found myself in this space, trying to, I guess, open the doors and, make sure more of our mob are, in research, not only as participants, but also in leading the work and communicating it and, feeding those results back to our community. So I guess I get involved in a lot of different things. I guess my main position is as a postdoctoral researcher and working as an Indigenous imaging fellow. So this is at the Hunter Medical Research Institute. But I'm also really proud to co-chair an Indigenous Student Engagement Committee. So this is where we kind of, are a point of call for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. If anyone's going through a hard time, needs some assistance or some advice in, the next steps after university, or just want to, try out research, work in a lab for some time and have some paid opportunities to build their CV. I guess, we're doing a lot of those kinds of things, trying to open the doors and be mentors and trying to make sure we have our mob, getting into the places where they need to be. Also really proud to be a member of the Australian Indigenous Doctors Association, AIDA, and I'm a Category B and Executive Committee member for our Animal Care and Ethics Committee, where I oversee a lot of different research projects and making sure that the research that we do is done well. Also part of our Aboriginal Health Community Research Panel, our Wakal Yaban, which is our one path research panel, where we overview lots of different research projects and make sure that if they want to do research with our mob, that they're doing it in the right way. We have the right people involved from the start of the projects and thinking about, making sure that the study is done, correctly, working with our people, but also giving it the best chance to work and actually have some tangible outcomes at the end of the project. And I've shared here a few different images from my life, things that are important to me: my fitness, my cats, me growing up, but also my connection to culture and, getting to do some amazing stuff in the lab. And there's just some absolutely incredible role models that I've had in my life, which have helped me get to where I am today. So, as I've alluded to, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are typically left out of research in many spaces, not just the field of neuroimaging, but unfortunately we're not unique in that regard. Many First Nations people, many Indigenous people from around the world are left out of research. There's been some really pivotal papers, that have come up quite recently where they've highlighted this fact, and you can see on the figure there, you can see that whilst many studies do report at least the sex of people that are involved, I mean, really, really poor numbers are reporting anything about race. And, the studies that do exist, that do report these things, they're typically done in the States or somewhere else. So if you look at the number of studies that are, actually involving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, it's zero, unfortunately. And that's a big part of, why we're doing the work, what we want to change. So we have a project entitled Deadly Images, which I've kind of alluded to this already, where we're establishing connections between, our imaging centre researchers and our local community. We're trying to understand what are the barriers for people getting involved in research, trying to ensure our community understand, why we do research in the first place, and, really take that ownership of, wanting to be involved, wanting to understand the work and wanting to oversee the work as well and have direct input into how it happens in our community. So I guess a major hypothesis that we had in starting this project was about, being able to utilize some different tools to make the experience a bit nicer. I guess when you talk to people about MRI scanning, people don't know a lot about it. They know it's probably going to be noisy, and they know it's maybe going to be a bit of a unpleasant environment. It might be a bit of a tight space, and they might be in there for a long period of time. So we kind of had a fair bit of conversation about this, and we thought, okay, what's something that we can do? What's something that's simple, achievable, but also going to be quite meaningful? So we worked with some people at our university to create some multimedia content that could be shown inside of the scanner to, hopefully improve the quality if people, are potentially less likely to move around during the scan because they've got something to look at, something to take them away from an unpleasant experience. But we're also hoping that it can make it, a nicer environment, and that people will, be able to tell us a bit about this, about how their experience was. So I guess others have looked at this similar kind of concept. Instead of just showing a crosshair, being able to play some music, maybe show some different fractals or different movements on the screen. So I guess we're taking this concept, but sort of applying it a bit further. Why can't we show, scenes of the bush? Why can't we show creation stories? Why can't we, introduce language and, instruments and song lines, stories that are really culturally important and relevant to our local community? And, as we kind of started having conversations, we thought, let's do it. So Jen's going to show you a little bit about this project.
Okay, so that's part of the 10 minutes that we've got, and this is a scene from Glenrock, which is not very far away from where we're based, but it's also part of a bigger story. It's part of a dreaming story that was actually gifted to the people that created this piece that we actually play within the MRI for our participants, and the notion is to make it more culturally safe and for people to feel as if we're meeting them at their space, even though it's a very clinical and cold place to be. So we've created a project called Deadly Images. And just to clarify, for those people who are not familiar with blackfella terms, deadly means awesome. It's not something that's going to kill you. It's actually something that's absolutely fantastic. So deadly images are fantastic images. But I think best to explain it, I'll play the next slide. We've got a fantastic video that the comms team helped us create as part of our open day for this project.
So I'm Guy, Whalewan fella, and proud to be here at Deadly Images, our event that we've run. I mean, you can hear the kids in the background having a great time. We've had food, we've had yarning around the circle. We've been hearing about how we're doing things differently. We're doing research, but it's our way and driven by our communities. We've had some youngsters coming through the imaging centre, seeing the MRI equipment, seeing the brain scans and asking so many questions about it, and just seeing that genuine interest of why, and that's exactly what we want.
Uncle Alex mentioned in the smoking ceremony about the need to keep the fire burning, and that's precisely what Deadly Images is doing. We're keeping the fire burning, we're sharing the stories, we're creating those opportunities. We've got strong cross-cultural, cross-disciplinary relationships, and going forward these relationships will seek not only to strengthen our communities, but to also provide meaningful research and data that will be supportive of Aboriginal families, communities, participants.
Yama, Naya Natural Narabari. My name is Renee Lamb and I'm a very proud Wiradjuri and Hong Kong woman. My family are from central western New South Wales, but I was born and raised on the homelands of the Wanneroo, Warramina, Wabakal people. Today, just seeing the kids get involved in their culture, being able to understand that, we may use all these Western terms like imaging or science, but at the end of the day, it comes back down to our purpose of practices of Aboriginal people. And I think showcasing that authenticity is extremely important for our kids to understand that knowledge.
It's honestly breaking down some of those barriers, and we're showing people that they are welcome here at HMRI. Like, our community is core of why we do what we do. There's no point doing research and then keeping all the results to ourselves and not including the community. I mean, the community drives every aspect of what we do here, and that's why we do it, is for tangible outcomes for people. That's at the end of the day why we come into work every day, and we have these problems there and we have questions and we want to find answers for people and be able to give that back to our communities and actually lead to some real benefits.
For us, outcomes and successes are measured very differently. We don't measure things the usual way, but ours is about relationship building, about strengthening ways of knowing, being and doing. For our project, the central focus has been to create and to build strong relationships. These relationships go for the length of the research and well beyond into the future, which is really a very special part and a privilege to be an Indigenous researcher.
Our research project is really exciting. Essentially, it's a stepping stone. It's phase one of having more inclusion of our people in research, not just as a participant in the research, although that's incredibly important, but making sure that we're driving the work as well. What we're doing is we're taking a bunch of scenes of Glenrock, of elements of Dig playing, background having language and creation stories, all of these beautiful things that have been developed through the University of Newcastle, and we're going to showcase them inside the scanner.
My background is in film photography, and through a partnership of a very long time friendship of mine with Tess Rendolph, we've been experimenting with the University of Newcastle's Eye Cave. It's taking a 360-degree camera out into the lovely areas of Newcastle. So we've looked at Mount Sugarloaf, Glenrock Lagoon, some of the swamps in and around the Hexham area, and also some of the wetlands and that as well. So for those of us that have been in and around hospitals, at times they can be quite structured and white and very sterile, and at times it's not the most inviting or a pleasing type of a venue or a space. So being able to bring some of these photography, these images and those videos into that space, we're hoping that it might be able to make that process of being in the health system a lot easier, a lot smoother. Another thing that we're interested in looking at is trying to bring different types of rhythms and musical elements into the space as well. A scanning machine with the big whirling and the buzzing of all the different instruments, and that can be quite daunting. So yeah, looking at ways of possibly how can we incorporate some Aboriginal sounds, nature sounds, and just making that process a lot more easier and smoother for the patient. So
What we hope is that you'll be able to see these elements. It'll make it a nicer experience for you, but it'll also improve the scanning quality, making it a better scanning quality for the practitioners to see, but also that you can tolerate the full scanning process to make sure that people are getting the scans that they desperately need for their diagnosis, for their medical treatments, etc. And this is something that we can roll out across the board. Once we've shown it's effective, we can use it in all different kinds of contexts, and we can show different media and develop something specifically for that community that's interested in it. And I hope that this will lead into many other projects looking at elders' health, looking at dementia, all these different things that affect our communities, but making sure that they're the ones that are driving the research projects and the questions, but also defining what success looks like. If it's the researchers defining the research programs and not having any inclusion of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, then of course it's not going to work when you try and put it out in communities. They're not going to know what it's about, and maybe there's some sensitive elements that we're not aware of. And the way research has been done, particularly in this field, has been a white male-dominated field. Right? Not only the participants in the research, but also the ones running it. So it's exciting to hear about the inclusion and the diversity that's happening across the board.
So now I want to tell you just a little bit about the stimuli that we actually developed and are showing people in the scanner. Firstly, it's a 10-minute audiovisual stimulus, and we developed it with close partnership with our local community. So it features a culturally grounded story that was generously gifted for this. And whilst I can't go into the exact narrative today because it is protected, and we want to make sure that it's not shared without proper permissions, I can tell you that the stimulus unfolds with it's quite immersive, and there's this visual and auditory kind of sequences. It starts out, in space, in this cosmic kind of galaxy scene, when there's lots of sounds, featuring the yiriki, the didgeridoo as it's commonly called, and it has spoken language of our people. It talks through a creation story, and then transitions to different areas across the country. So we're seeing desert scenes, we're seeing bushlands, some fire, ocean, sky, different wildlife, fish swimming through the water. And we've got each moment of this video kind of captured and annotated so that we can kind of align it with our MRI scanning and kind of see how the brain is reacting to these, culturally embedded kind of stimuli. So I guess talking a little bit about the data that we've generated, we've run through a pilot study so far. We've been able to capture 6 participants from our research group, and we're hoping to move on with getting some scans of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander adolescents. So starting out, we've used the fMRI prep version 25.0.2, we've done some slice timing correction, and next we've done the spatial normalization of the anatomical T1 weighted reference. So we've used the 2009 template to apply the non-linear registration for this. We've aligned the functional and anatomical MRI data, and we've regressed the movement and other confounders. And we've looked for, is there any kind of patterns emerging in things like our global signal versus other confounders. We've plotted here the summary statistics, and of note is this frame-wise displacement. And this is the major measurement that we're using to kind of get an idea about how much a participant is shifting during their scan or movement artifact, essentially. And we'll be comparing this to the resting state eventually. So currently we've just got the raw outputs here, but over the 10-minute period, we're kind of seeing how much does a voxel move in relation to the previous time point. And you can see that for the whole 6 participants, things are remaining at pretty steady state with a couple of outliers there. But we're comparing this to the resting state to really get an idea of whether the stimuli is working. But as sort of a pilot, part of the data, we're quite happy to move forward with scanning some young adolescents and see if the cultural multimedia is quite effective or not.
So part of my methodology background is country and listening to country and being informed by country. So the team has gone out on country to actually go and experience country as an immersion. We have Uncle Paul there. We're actually at a knowledge site at Wollombi. If you can see, there's etched engraved images in the rocks. It's talking about imaging. We do imaging. There's images behind in the cave as well. We've met Soretta. Soretta has been engaged to work with our team to do some artwork to create something that's pretty spectacular. So yes, we all have our lovely clinical white machines, but we wanted to do things a little bit differently. So we've engaged Soretta and she has created Nakilaka Malang, which means to see together. And this is the outcome. It is the story of the imaging centre and all of the dreaming stories of all of the groups, and it will become a wrap that goes around the exterior of the MRI machine and also the boar. So we've got Bayami, the eagle, the creator spirit at the very top, which is central to a lot of the dreaming stories in our area. The kookaburra is particularly important to the John Hunter Hospital area and all of the others. The pictures that are seen around the areas denote what we scan, what we do, and all of the things around connect, the dreaming, the talking, the gathering, the knowledge, the bush tucker, all connect, and we're hoping to reference and use those in the hallway going into the imaging centre. Somewhat conscious of time, so I may give Guy we may be able to
So now I'd like to introduce you to another project that we're doing.
Yeah, so, sorry Guy. So, because that'll be another 10 minutes because he's passionate about that. This is the outcome of that project, Seeds for Growth and Healing. So we have a kangaroo paw apple and a bush apple. Both have stories of being gifted to us from elders, Auntie Sandra and Uncle John. And we have imaged both of those to go alongside the natural history illustrations that have been provided. So we look at outcomes that are just a little bit different. I'm also conscious that I don't want people to miss out on questions. And so in keeping with my circular methodology, like there's endings, there's beginnings, nothing really ends. It's not like Western science where it's start, finish, problem, solution. This is something that's ongoing and continues to nourish and return to each of the people and for each of the people that are part of it. We are very grateful to be part of a very inclusive and culturally diverse team. There's huge benefits to having 2 Indigenous imaging fellows. We're particularly grateful to NIF for part-funding our projects and certainly promoting us as being something quite unique and taking a share and supporting us in that role. Everything that has grown out of this project has grown through the methodology of yarning, and as you can see, we actually tend to yarn quite well and talk quite a bit. So sorry about the extra long time, but we would welcome the expansion of this project. Guy and I feel like we've been writing ourselves silly to get grants to be able to go forward, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Like Wendy and Lee, it's not work. It's really not work. It's just an absolute joy. So thank you, everyone.
And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you, everyone, for putting up with me jumping in and out. And again, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there, but I have no doubt that you're going to have an amazing presentation from our Maori colleagues here.